was finally able to get my Thanksgiving meal and also get some rest. So I'm grateful for that. So it's now 6:05. So we'll begin with this presentation. So can you guys see my screen? Let me know if it's clear. Let me know if you guys can hear me clearly and also if you can see everything well.
Yes, I can see him here.
All right, sounds good. So this is essentially going to be a contest brief and also a presentation on each of the contests that we will be having on Thursday. I think we missed an opportunity to really have something like this throughout the this past quarter. And I think that this is something that can benefit everyone going into the club contest, but also going into the area contest as well. Because once, because the area contest actually starts, well, the season for the area contest starts the second week in January. So I want to make sure that everyone is able or at least has a good knowledge base and foundation to compete with any club globally. So a lot of what I'll be sharing tonight will be some things that I've been preparing for personally in Division I. Also, some of my experiences from the last contest, my first contest last year, and also a lot of the things that worked and things that didn't work for me that I think can be beneficial for everyone else. So contests aren't won on the day. It's like a sport. You know, you have to train consistently before, and game day is simply it should be the easiest day. We should be practicing harder than we play, so that when it comes time to step into the spotlight, it's just second nature to us. And there's no jitters, there's no nervousness, there's no anything. We're not figuring anything out on the contest night. So we're going to gain some strategies, some frameworks, and insights that's going to separate good contestants from winning contestants. We're going to walk through how each contest is judged, how to strategize your performance, how to prepare some frameworks, even when you don't know what's going to come, especially like for table topics and also the evaluation. And also, we're going to get some techniques that I've personally used that have worked out for me. So by the end of the session, everyone should have everything you need to compete with confidence. Okay, so there are three contests. There's the table topics contest, the evaluation contest, and also the international speech contest. The table topics contest is simply where you get a prompt or a question, and you respond to that, and you have to speak between 1 minute and 2 minutes and 30 seconds. At the 1 minute time frame, you're going to see the green light, and you have to talk for at least 1 minute. At 1 minute, you get a green light. At 1 minute 30 seconds, you get a yellow light, and at 2 minutes, you get the red light. However, each contest gives you 30 seconds of grace period. So at 2 minutes, when you see the red light, that means you have 30 seconds left to wrap up whatever it is you're saying. Now, for the evaluation contest, you're going to hear a test speaker. So that no one is going to know who the test speaker is. No one is going to know what the speech is going to be about. And everyone is going to start at a level playing field in evaluating this test speech and test speaker. And you will have about 5 minutes simply to put your notes down and then give a presentation. So here's how this will go. So you're going to hear the test speaker. And as you're hearing the test speaker, you cannot take any notes at all. So you can't take no notes. You just have to simply listen. This is really a listening type of contest. So it works on how well you can listen, how well you can remember, and then put some structure. So the test speaker speaks. Then you go outside and you have 5 minutes to put your thoughts on paper and create an evaluation. Then you're going to come back to the stage in the room, and then you're going to have 3 minutes and 30 seconds to give an evaluation. At 2 minutes, you're going to see the green lights. At 2 minutes 30 seconds, you're going to see the yellow light. And at 3 minutes, you're going to see the red lights. And of course, you're going to have 30 seconds from the red light to wrap up whatever it is you're saying. And from there, that is the evaluation contest. And finally, we have the international speech contest, which is simply like every speech that we give in the club. It's a 5 to 7 minute speech, and it should either move or inspire your audience or inform them. I've seen that a lot of the speakers that have won international contests, those have been speeches that have either moved or inspired their audience. So I think that would be a good suggestion to anyone wanting to give or compete in a speech contest. So let's open up with table topics. Now, what I've learned and realized with table topics, the winning formula requires a clear structure with a beginning, a middle, and an end. So just like any speech you have, there needs to be structure. You need to have a beginning. This is what I'm going to be talking about, or something that lets the audience know, okay, this is the direction I'm going in. Then you have the information in the middle, that's your body. And finally, your conclusion, which is a call to action. You have to have smooth flow. Yes, it's going to be something impromptu, but again, it's a presentation, so you have to seem like you know exactly what you're talking about. You have to seem smooth. Fine, you have to also have confidence. You got to have confidence with vocal variety and a personal connection to the question. One of the things that I've realized that a lot of people misjudge with table topics is you have to either relate to the question or phrase you were asked or answer the question. In club during the meetings, there is no wrong answer for table topics, but at the contest level, you must either answer the question or relate to the question or phrase in some way. And finally, your message should land with impact. If someone asks, if the question or phrase is something about space or spaceships, you should probably have something to do with spaceships, aliens, or something, just so that there's a connection and a message that's going to land with what the topic theme is about. Because judges are gonna score people who sound like they meant what they said and not like you're guessing. It's almost like a politician. You don't want to hear a politician saying they don't know exactly what they're working on, but they can plan to work on it. You want to know that they have a plan, and it's essentially the same thing for a table topics. It's almost like a commercial. Like, for instance, let's say you were in a moldy room between 2008 to 2015, you may be able to be compensated for mesothelioma. Call us at this number. So there's an opening letting you know exactly what I'm going to be speaking about. I'm letting you know you may be exposed to mesothelioma, and my call to action is I want you to call me so that I can give you a consultation. So it's essentially just a commercial for anything that you're going to be speaking about. Now, there's 3 types of table topics prompts. And if anyone has a question, feel free to just step in or raise your hand or say something in the chat so that I can answer on the fly. So there's 3 types of table topics prompts. As mentioned, there's direct questions, there's opinions or quotes, and then there's abstract scenarios. So with the direct questions, it's just straightforward, like what we do in the club. You're going to ask a question that inquires about a perspective or an experience. An example is like, what does success mean to you? Then there's opinionated statements or quotes. And this could be something like, courage is the first virtue. And from that, you now have to continue that sentence, or you have to find a way to incorporate that quote into your presentation. And then there's abstract scenarios where it's a very creative prompt and it tests your imagination and how metaphorically you can think. So an example of that would be, if you were a bridge, what would you connect? Now that sounds pretty wild, but you would be surprised to hear the type of imagination and the type of things people are going to be able to put together for a prompt like that. If I was a bridge, I would connect people from empathy to love or something. And just off the fly, you got to start going with that. So moving on. Now, how do you prepare for, or how do you attack these different things? One of the things that I have done over the past few months, I decided to go to different Toastmasters clubs. So one, I can see the different types of questions and prompts and phrases that each club has, because it's a different culture in every club. I wanted to also see how different persons respond to table topics questions. And I wanted also to test myself on responding to different types of audiences, like with Club 1600, where it's a room full of men, certain things you say may not resonate with that audience versus in cable, where it's a mixture, or if I want to go to 7178, where it's more women, it's 3 different types of rooms, which would require 3 different types of responses. So I usually have frameworks that I like to use And one of them is the story framework. I think this is the one that I'm most comfortable with because I can always try to find a story or make up a story for any prompt that comes to me. This would also be the framework that you would have seen me use mostly in the club. So the story is the past, the lesson, and also the future. And this is perfect for motivational or personal prompts that invite storytelling. I think incorporating storytelling is the easiest way to answer a table topics question because you don't really have to think too far once you get that story in your mind because it's your story. It's like a speech. You know your story, so it's going to be easy for you to start speaking about it and also speak about what you've learned about this story. The other framework is called a RISE framework. And this is essentially to reveal what you want to speak about, illustrate it, summarize it, and then close. Now, this is a bit more advanced, and I would use something like this for a very provocative quote or something like, for instance, I believe that chocolate ice cream is better than vanilla ice cream. Here's why I believe that. Because chocolate has so much more flavors, it has a lot more texture than vanilla. Because think about it, if you have a vanilla car, it's probably a car that has no real gadgets or something. Versus if you have a chocolate car, that's a car that has the leather seats, the brown seats, the high rims, all that stuff. So that's just one way that you can utilize the RISE framework. There's also the POP framework. This is very popular as well. This could be a personal story or something that you've observed. So yeah, personal story. What did you learn from this personal story? And then give to the audience. When I was 6 years old, I put my hand on the stove and I got burns. What that told me was, don't put your hand on the stove or don't put yourself in a situation that you're not really aware of. And then you could turn it into a call to action. You can make a whole story from that. And that would be the POP framework. Then there's also the analogy framework where you can compare, explain something, and then tie it all back. And this is more so for like an abstract prompt where it's going to it requires creative thinking. And then finally, a thesis framework, which is you have a point. I believe chocolate ice cream is better than vanilla ice cream. Here's why, and then tie it back to the audience in some way. I think most people will resonate better with the story framework as it is simple and easy to remember. But I also want you to remember something. Anytime you speak under a contest, it should be the same framework as a regular speech. So you have to have your call to action, your body. You have to have your hook, your body, and a call to action. This last week, I competed in the table topics contest, and the question was, tell us about a time you have felt uncomfortable. And I decided to use the story framework, and I spoke. And one of the things that I did first, I knew when I heard the question, I would speak about my time in college and having to graduate during COVID and then going into finance. So the first thing that I did was I opened with a quote and I said, anyone can make money, but not everyone keeps it. I paused, I acknowledged the audience, the contest chair, and then I moved into my information and I opened with, let me take you back to a moment when I was in college. So boom, I already told you I'm going to speak about something related to money. Now I'm going in the past to tell you a story. And from there, I extracted the lesson from my story and used that for my call to action. And because the question was, tell us a time when you felt uncomfortable, I told them about the time when I was getting into finance and an internship. And then what I did was I became comfortable with being uncomfortable. So because I was uncomfortable, I told myself, man, I gotta do this. I gotta find a way to work around this. And because I knew persons have been in similar situations, I utilized audience connection. I told it in a storytelling manner. It was more conversational. And then for my call to action, I told them, anytime you feel uncomfortable in a situation, remember what I did in my story. I felt uncomfortable, but I was able to get over that hill, and you can do the same thing too. And it doesn't have to fully sound like a perfected speech, but it should be simple enough. It should have something that resonates with the question or phrase, and the audience should be able to understand it. So we've went into the frameworks. Let me show you how to open in a strong table topics. So like I had just said, the first 5 seconds determines your confidence level. And you can either start with one of the phrases below, or you can do like what I do is I like to open with a quote, the body, and a call to action. So this reminds me of a moment when I believe, let me take you back to here's the truth. And I think that these openers are very easy to utilize because it's simple. They also show confidence, commitment, and control from the very first word. Because if you don't know what you're going to start with, if you don't know what you're going to start with, it's going to actually show in your whole presentation. Now, for the table topics, here's some critical reminders. Move over a bit. Yeah, so critical reminders are don't repeat the question. Now, I know there are a lot of persons who like to repeat the question. However, I wouldn't recommend repeating the question unless you want to give yourself more time to think. So for example, if I ask you, Toastmaster Cynthia Paul, what is the difference between a cube and a paso? And you can't think of the difference in a short amount of time. What you can do is, thank you, contest chair. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. What is the difference between a paso and a cube? Now, you've just given yourself about 7 to 10 seconds just saying that to help you think about something. However, if you know exactly what you want to talk about, it makes more sense to get right into what your point is going to be. Because imagine you're competing with 10 people now, and other 9 people know exactly what they want to say. Now you've put yourself in a bad situation because they can say more than you. So unless you're really trying to give yourself more time to think, I would not repeat the question that is asked to you because everyone heard the question. Everyone in the room heard the question. The judge is going to say the question twice. They're going to say, Toastmasters and Cynthia Paul, tell us the difference between a cube and a paso. Tell us the difference between a cube and a paso, Toastmasters and Cynthia Paul. So you're going to have your name, the question, your name. So the audience itself, we don't need to hear the question 3 times. You already heard it. So be aware of not repeating the question unless you want to use it to give yourself more time. The next thing is make a choice fast. Again, it's table topics. You got to speak on the cuff. So if you're going to go in one direction, you got to stay in that direction because you don't want to be talking about going right. Next thing you know, you're talking about going left because now you're confusing the audience and the judges want to hear clarity in what you say. And then finally, land in a message. So when I say land in a message, what I mean is have a call to action. Every time you speak, make sure the audience leaves with something from your speech. So if I'm going to talk about what's the difference between a cube and a paso, what I'm going to say is, and because of these reasons, here is why you need to choose a cube over a paso. And when I close, I'm going to say, the next time you have an option to choose between a cube and a paso, I want you to choose a cube because X, Y, Z. So that is the call to action there. Every time you speak, leave people with something to do. Because what's the use of having a great speech if the people don't know what to do after it? So tell them exactly what they should do after hearing your speech. So let's now go into what the judges look for in a table topics competition. 1 second. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
All right. So here now is what a judge's ballot looks like. So you remember when you're in school and the teacher tells you at the beginning of the term, this is what I'm going to grade you on. You can get 30% for the tests, 50% for the homework, 10% for projects. This is literally over here what the table topics judges are looking for. They're looking for speech development, the opening, the body, the close. That's the structure, organization, smoothness. They're also going to look at effectiveness. What's the logic of what you're saying? The directness, enthusiasm. What's the purpose? Is the audience going to gain something from this? Also, your voice, flexibility, volume. Can you go up? Can you go down? Can you stay monotone when it needs to be monotone? Your appropriateness. If the question asks you about cars, we don't need you to be talking about boats. So stay within the lanes of what the question is asking you, to the speech purpose and also to the audience. And finally, the correctness, your grammar, your punctuation, your word selection, all of these things matter. Let's go into judging criteria. So 55% is speech development. So the way you're going to put the idea together so the audience can understand it. More than half of what you're going to be judged on is what your content is going to be about. So if they ask you about sharks, don't go talking about elephants. We want to hear about sharks in some form or manner. 30% is going to be delivery. It's a big chunk. A lot of times you don't know what you're saying, but at least look like it. Looking like you know what you're going to say is going to take you from here to here. And then finally, the least amount of points will be on language. And I think you should make whatever you say as simple as possible. Make it as simple as possible. So the content is going to be the most important thing, making sure you're answering the question or phrase, making sure it's relatable. Secondly, the delivery, your physical presentation, your body language, how you sound, are you connecting with your audience, your eye contact, and then finally, your language. All good? Give me thumbs up in the chat. Let me know I'm making sense. All right, cool. Any questions so far?
Yes,
So
I
what
have a
wanna-
question.
All
I
right,
have a
go ahead.
question. Let's say a table topic is asked and you honestly cannot think of anything. Like you're really stuck. What do you suggest to do in a situation like that?
Right. So that's a great question, actually. So one of the things is when you call up to the table topics, when you call up to the stage and the judge calls your name, you can stand up there for a few seconds to give yourself time to think. You don't have to start right away. So one of the things that I like to do is, even if I already know an idea in my head, the direction I want to go, I'm going to give myself about 10 seconds just to stand there. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to stand there because the timer doesn't start unless you either say something or like you try to communicate something with your hand. So if you just stand there and stare, the time doesn't start. So you can hear the question. You're like, oh man, what am I gonna say? And just stand there. Don't say nothing. Don't communicate no type of way. Just stand there. Think about it. And then from there, you now go ahead. And once you start talking, don't stop until you see the green light. So that's the best advice I can give you on that question. Continue to talk, or even when you don't know what to say, just give yourself some time to think. Use that 10 seconds. And then when you start, make sure you start strong and finish strong as well. And don't stop until that green light pops up. It's a great question. Are there any more questions? Questions? All right, so I want to try something now. So because I like to learn by doing, I also want to see what you guys have learned in that short amount of time. And we're going to go through a mock table topics contest, but we're not going to use the same question for everyone because everyone is going to still hear what everyone else is going to say. So I want to see you guys use that framework of, so let's go back to the framework. So the story framework, the RISE framework, the POP framework, I want to see if you guys can utilize any of these frameworks. So we'll have Toastmaster Alex Pearson asking some questions, and based on those questions, see how best you can utilize these frameworks. And remember, you're going to have 2 minutes and 30 seconds to give a presentation. So let's open up the floor to Toastmaster Pearson. We can't hear you, Toastmaster Pearson.
One moment, my connection is a bit choppy right now. Can everybody hear me well now? Testing.
Can you guys hear her?
I
But
can hear.
it's very,
She was
choppy.
choppy, but I can hear.
All right, she's going to ask from out here. All right, 1 second. So before she gets here, I'll ask a question real quick. So I'm going to do it in the same way that we would do it for the contest. So the question is, tell us about a time you were uncomfortable. Toastmaster Sandia Paul. Toastmaster Sandia Paul, tell us about a time you were uncomfortable.
Bad people get away when good people sit back and do or say nothing. Mr. Chair, fellow Toastmasters and guests, good evening. I could recall being called into a meeting to discuss issues that not only affected myself, but customer experience, my colleagues, and the business at large. This meeting was a very uncomfortable meeting because I knew that at the end of this meeting, after what I said, would affect so many different people. It was extremely uncomfortable, but it was something that I knew within myself was needed to do. Sometimes in life, we will be faced with things we must do, even though we may not want to do it, because we know that the greater good is at risk. So, fellow Toastmasters and guests, I would like to admonish you. If sitting down and saying nothing is going to lead to the destruction of a thing that you care about, you cannot sit back and say nothing. Irregardless of how uncomfortable you are, you must speak up. Thank you.
Good stuff, good stuff. So your
I
time
was looking for
was,
the time. I was looking for the green thing.
yeah, sorry.
And
So
I
your
have to,
time was 1 minute, 18 seconds. Now that's good enough to get you eligible, but you want to take up as much time as possible. I think you had really great structure. You open with a quote, and it told us right away the direction that you were going in. Then you gave a personal story about going into the meeting, and you also gave us information there and then a call to action. So that is a pretty great structure. That's exactly what we're looking for in a table topics contest. However, the only thing is, can you now stretch that story a bit more so that you can now give us some highs, some lows, even put a joke in there? I've learned that having some type of humor in your any presentation, it now connects with the audience even more. Because what if you're like, now these people looking at me because they talking about them or something, right? Something to make people laugh or feel a bit more comfortable. Because imagine someone in your audience was that person on the other side, and now you remind them of a bad time. Now they feel uncomfortable. Now imagine if you can make that uncomfortable feeling a bit more humorous, and now they start laughing in a bad memory. So that's now another way you can turn that, you can add to it and stretch your time, and you can even start talking slower. You can use the power of the pause and so many other attributes. But I'm sure as we continue, and if you were able to see the green light and whatnot, you would know whether to add more time or not. So let's have Toastmaster Pearson now come with more questions.
Mr. President, before you go, I wanted to confirm the time. The time should be 2 to 3 minutes or 1 to 2 minutes.
It should be 1 to 2 minutes, and then you will have 30 seconds grace period.
Okay, because I joined a little bit late. Maybe I may have missed this, but what is considered a good time or I
Right.
guess
So
yeah.
So to be eligible, you just got to be speaking for a minute. However, if you want to have the most impact, I personally like to talk for 2 minutes. So once I see that red light, I know okay, I got 30 seconds to wrap it up. So I'll talk up to like 2 minutes. Once I see the yellow light, I know okay, it's gonna be soon time for me to wrap up. So I'll keep talking until I see that orange light. And by the time I see the red light, I know okay, let me find a way to wrap it up. Now you got to understand how much time is 30 seconds so that you can wrap it up. So when I'm competing, a lot of my table topics, they will end with like 2 minutes and 20 seconds. However, it's much more safe to aim for around 2 minutes because you use the full allotted time. And I think 2 minutes gives you enough time to say a whole lot. You can open, you give a lot of information and a call to action. So it just depends on what you're comfortable with. I like to start closing when I see the red light. However, for other persons, you may want to start closing when you see the yellow light. But you just got to speak for 1 minute, and that's good enough. But to compete, you want to put yourself in the best situation possible. So now I'd be trying to speak for the full 2 minutes and 30 seconds given to you. Any more questions from anyone on table topics? Okay, Toastmaster Dean is going to come and give a few more questions.
Good night again, everyone. Okay.
Good night.
Toastmaster Travonia Carey. The best things in life are not free. The best things in life are not free. Toastmaster Travonia Carey.
I'm having audio issues. I'm trying to log out and log back in. So if you could circle back to me, please, because I have to log out again. You're sounding very robotic on my end. So I don't think it's your end. I think it's my end. So I'm trying to correct that now.
Okay, no
Okay.
problem.
Thank you.
Toastmaster Sandia Miller. The best things in life are not free. The best things in life are not free. Toastmaster Sandia Miller.
The best things in life are not free is a phrase that I do not agree with. I do not agree with this phrase because I believe that some of the best things in life are free. I believe that there's no cost for love. I believe that there's no cost to buy the right people in your corner. I believe that success is what you make it. The best things in life, some of them are indeed free. freedom of worship, freedom of voice, freedom of religion, freedom to advocate for those who are weak among us, who cannot find their voice. Those things do not cost a penny. The best things in life for me, from my lens, are most certainly free. You just have to look hard enough to define what those things are. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Toastmaster Miller.
Okay, so Toastmaster Miller, your time was 4 minutes and 6 seconds. Again, that's eligible time. And one of the things that I liked about what you said, you gave yourself time to think about the question by asking or at least saying the phrase again, but then you also gave your view on the question. So for example, your quote, you said the best things in life are free. So you gave a different perspective from the question, and you were able to still answer or give your point of view while still incorporating the phrase that was given. You also gave examples. I think the examples were very relevant to yourself because it was personal, and that means because it was personal to you, it was personal to other persons as well. So you're able to connect with persons in the audience. I can't recall if you gave a call to action because I was checking the time. But one of the things, just like Toastmaster Paul, you want to utilize that full 2 minutes. And obviously that's because you guys aren't able to see the timer's clock, but we'll have that stuff available. So that was also a great response as well. So let's move on to Toastmaster Pearson.
Okay. For Toastmaster Madeline Archer. Gratitude. Gratitude, Toastmaster Madeline Archer.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Gratitude. For me, gratitude is such a powerful word. When I look at my life, I can surely sum up my entire life in one word, and that word is simply gratitude. I am so grateful for how far I've come, the accomplishments that I've made, the things that I was able to accomplish as a young woman, getting pregnant at the age of 14. By age 23, I had 4 children with a 9th grade education. Everyone said to me, it cannot happen for you. But I took every stone that was thrown at me and I built a solid foundation. Today, that foundation is so solid, I am able to help other young women who has meet the same fate in life to hold on to that word gratitude and make something of themselves. So if you find yourself with your back against the wall, seeming like there's no way out and everyone has turned their back on you, the first thing that I would encourage you to do is to develop a heart of gratitude. Once you are grateful for where you are, you will be amazed at where you can go. Thank you.
Good stuff. Your time was 2 minutes, Toastmaster Archer. You're right on it. That was amazing. You were able to open with the theme. You then gave us a personal story. You gave examples. You had a good opening. You even had a call to action as well. So that's exactly what we're looking for in the table topics contest. I think you would have. So let's go back. Let me get there, please, Alex. So let's go back to the judging criteria once more. One second. Sorry. Right. So we're going back to the judging criteria, and again, the main thing is going to be content. And I think one of the things that you excel at in that response was the content, the speech development, the way you put your ideas together. You use gratitude as your callback in terms of going back into your story. You told us the personal story again, and then you related your story to other persons. You went from I to you to I to we to you. You gave a call to action at the end for other women who could be in your situation or who may already be in your situation, how you can help them as well, and then told them, look for gratitude. So that was perfect. I think that was a really good example. We'll have two more questions for Toastmaster Tanya Miller and then DTM Gongora. Back to you, Alex.
Distinguished Toastmaster Ernesto Gongora. Fair is temporary. Fair is temporary, Distinguished Toastmaster Ernesto Gongora.
I am afraid now. I am afraid that I may mess up at this contest and I may lose and be last place in this contest. But guess what? Fair is temporary. It's going to go away because when you are a Toastmaster, you are able to conquer your fears. You are able to control your emotions and organize your thoughts to be able to answer questions on the spot. My journey as a Toastmaster has helped me from being a very fearful speaker to being more confident. And every time I have to speak, I get that fear. I get that fear that I'm not going to be able to come up with the thoughts that are needed at that moment. I'm in fear that my speech is not going to be smooth, that people are not going to connect with the words I'm saying. But that is only temporary. I believe that thanks to the training that I have gone through in Toastmasters, I am able to control that fear and I'm able to show others how to control their fear. So if you are afraid about something, remember that fear is only temporary. And if you can control it, not necessarily make it go away, but control it, then you will be able to conquer it and be yourself and be a better communicator. Because control is not temporary. Once you control it, that's forever. Madam Table Topics Master.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. The time is 2 minutes and 11 seconds. That was well within the allotted time. Do you guys what framework do you think Distinguished Toastmaster going to use? Does anyone see anything that mimics what he just said?
Say it again, Mr. President. I didn't get the question.
So of all the table topic frameworks on the screen, does anyone know which one of the frameworks was most similar to his response just now?
I'd go number 2.
Anyone else?
I feel like he gave a point and he gave an example of what was happening. So it seems like the thesis framework. to
Yeah,
me.
so I was thinking it was the thesis framework as well. He made his point that fear is temporary, and he gave examples of how his fear was temporary. He gave his backstory in Toastmasters. He spoke about how other persons can also feel the same fear that he's felt, and then he tied it back at the end, letting the person know that fear is temporary, but control, I think he said, isn't temporary because control is forever, something along those lines. So that was a great example, in my opinion, what a thesis framework is like. And another, it shows you that you can use these different frameworks to answer any question. It could be a phrase, it could be a question, it could be a quote, anything. As long as you keep talking and you have a certain structure, it gets the point across to the audience. So let's have one more Toastmaster person.
Toastmaster Tanya Miller. What's one thing you wish you could change? What's one thing you wish you could change, Toastmaster Tanya Miller?
Even though there are days I wish I could change some things that happened in the past, I look to God in knowing that change is inevitable, and I certainly am one to embrace change. But if there is one thing I wish I could change, fellow Toastmasters and guests, and that is the mindset of a lot of young people nowadays. A lot of young people look at getting to make a quick buck, whether they have to take some illegal or cruel route. Young people, in some cases, have a desire just to move too fast. They don't sit back and think. They don't sit back and think properly on how to move forward. They don't know, a lot of them don't know in some cases how to resolve conflict without hurting someone. And I say this and I witness this. I do have young children. I have a lot of young nieces and nephews. And if I could change something, I wish I could change the way they think and the way they go about things, and to be able to sit and talk with them, to be able to show them an example of how things can be better if they just take time to think, step back, not want to take the fast road all the time. Focus on being better persons. Focus on getting a good education. Take time to actually literally focus and to see that there is a better way than trying to get things quick, hurriedly, and the wrong way. Thank you.
So Toastmaster Miller, your time was 2 minutes and 49 seconds. That is over the allotted time. So this would have been a disqualified table topics answer. So one of the things we have to ensure we pay attention to, or at least get comfortable with, is knowing when that 1 minute time comes around. Even if you can't see the time, at least knowing, okay, I've probably been talking for a minute. Now it's time for me to at least start getting into my point. And also, one of the things that I had to realize the hard way was, once you see that red light, or once you understand that you're over 2 minutes, you got to find a way now to close off, find a way just to summarize and get to the call to action right away. So I think you had, the content was there. I could see the points that you had. We also heard your call to action. I thought you had also a great opening, but now it's just compacting all of those things to make it a little more concise, make it easier for persons to understand in a small amount of words. And then finally, bringing it all within the allotted time. You have 2 minutes and 30 seconds to get all that in. So you already got the content. Now it's just putting it in a much smaller package so that you can stay within the allotted time. So now I'll ask Toastmaster person the last question, and from there we'll move on to the evaluation part of this meeting. Okay. Toastmaster person, if you had just a pen, what would you do with it? If you had just a pen, what would you do with it? Toastmaster person.
Give me a pen and I could change the world. A pen would be all I need, all that I need to start my journey. You see, fellow Toastmasters and guests, everything begins when we put pen to paper. This is the moment that we start to organize our thoughts. This is the moment that we start to organize our plans. And from there, we can put our plans into action. So when you see me in Toastmasters, when you see me in business, when you see me in life in general, know that for me, it started with just a pen. It started with just a pen when I was journaling. It started with just a pen when I was writing down my thoughts, when I was writing down scriptures, when I was writing down my prayers. It all began with just a pen. Sometimes I would write on my hands. Sometimes I would write in my journal. Sometimes I would write on walls. But it all started with just a pen. So what I want you to understand is that you don't need much to start. What you need is already here. And once you take it from here and you put it to pen and paper, your journey to abundance has already begun. Mr. Contest Chair.
I have to talk. All right, so her time was 1 minute. Let me get up this. Her time was 1 minute and 40 seconds. I believe she had utilized the analogy framework where it was an abstract prompt and she had to require creative thinking. And she told us how she used just a pen to start her journey. And I think it was a good example of how creative you can get, because you never know what type of question or phrase these people are going to ask you. Sometimes it might just be one word like gratitude. So you have to be prepared for all of these different aspects of what a table topics can entail. Seeing Toastmaster Kerry asking if this will be shared. Yes, I'll be sharing the PowerPoint and also this video. So yeah, are there any more questions on the table topics? I think we had a pretty extensive run through. Any questions? Okay, all right, DTM Gongra.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody that a table topics contest or a table topics answer is a mini speech. You should always remember to give a little introduction, your body, and your conclusion in a kind of in a speech format. So that's all. In case it wasn't mentioned before I came in.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to evaluations. Let me get. All right. So evaluations. So evaluation is essentially going to be where judges are going to be looking for accurate listening. There's going to be a structure and evaluation, like Toastmaster DTM Gonger mentioned. Every time you present, it should be in a speech format. We have to have structure in everything that we do. There has to be clear commendations, clear recommendations. There should be some kindness and specificity. It should be professionally delivered, no rambling, and also you don't have to repeat the entire speech. Understand that the audience already heard the speech, you heard the speech, you don't have to repeat everything that they said. So, go ahead. Someone had a question just now? Okay, yes. So the evaluation contest is going to be 2 to 3 minutes, and you're going to have 30 seconds spare time of grace. So you can go up to 3 minutes and 30 seconds. You will see the green light at 2 minutes, the yellow light at 2 minutes, 30 seconds, and the red light at 3 minutes. Once the red light comes on, you have 30 seconds to wrap up what it is that you've decided to tell the speaker. Now, just like table topics, there is a framework that you can use. Even though you don't know what the speaker is going to be speaking about, you don't know what type of tangent they may go on, or how you can give an evaluation on a speech that you haven't heard, you can always prepare some type of framework. Now, the recommendation is not the moment to show off. You want to help the speaker. The point of giving an evaluation is so that the speaker can come back another time and give a more improved presentation. So we have to have a way of evaluating without breaking down. One of the things that I think the best evaluations have is it makes the speaker want to be better. It empowers them rather than correcting them. So one of the ways that we can do that is by that when you start to give your recommendation, you say one opportunity to elevate this even further is XYZ. You may want to consider adding XYZ. A small adjustment that can strengthen this message is this, and you can amplify your impact by doing this. One of the ways that I personally like to evaluate is, so I'll give you an example of how I evaluated last week in the competition. So the test speaker was Toastmaster Eddie Toot. And if you guys are familiar with Toastmaster Toot, everyone knows that he has a speech impediment. So that is something that he is born with. And during his speech, he was going great. But around the middle, because he had stepped away from the lectern, he completely forgot his speech. He completely forgot his speech. He stood there for about 5 to 6 seconds in silence. Then he walked back to the lectern, and then he looked at his speech on his paper, brought the paper to the middle of the lectern, and started reading from the paper. Now, as an evaluator, I think everyone in the audience knows, okay, that probably wasn't planned. But now as an evaluator, how do you now recommend or commend a speaker that has obviously been in an uncomfortable situation? Do you want to bring it to light again, or do you want to empower them so that they can use what you've given them to be a better presenter the next time? So what I did was, I didn't even mention it. I didn't mention it as a commendation. What I did was I told him, I didn't mention it as a recommendation. What I told him was, I saw that you were in an uncomfortable situation and you went back to your resources. As a speaker, anytime you put yourself in an uncomfortable situation for the benefit of the audience, I can applaud that, because he decided to put himself in an uncomfortable situation to give a message to the audience. So I told him, it's okay. You were able to go back to your resources and utilize what you had pre-written. And this also tied into what he was speaking about. He was speaking about something that was able to connect with what I recommended him or commended him on. And also it helped him in his presentation as well. The other thing is he spoke about accounting. He spoke about his story as a college student and everything that he's been doing in the accounting field. And one of the ways that I gave him a recommendation was, here is one credit to add to your balance sheet. Now remember, he's an accountant. Accountants deal with all types of financial sheets. he understands what a balance sheet is, debits and credits, and it's also simple enough so that the audience understands what I'm trying to say. So when I gave him his recommendation, I told him, now here's how we can add some credits to this balance sheet so that the next time you give a presentation, you have much more wealth to give the audience. So now it goes from me trying to give him a recommendation to telling him, here's how we're going to do this better using his theme for his speech. And this is one way how you can give a recommendation without breaking down the speaker. And some things to listen for during this test speech is the opening technique. So again, the structure, how did they open? Then you have the story clarity. Was it clear what the speaker was trying to get across to us? The transitions, how did he transition from the opening to the body, from the body to the conclusion? The different points, how did he transition from those points? And then voice control. Was he speaking in monotone the whole time? Was it the same pace? Did he have rises, peaks, valleys? Did he play with our emotions? What was his body language like? Was he stiff? Was he fluid? Was he loose? Was he open? Was he closed off? The call to action. How did he close his speech? Did he give us something specific to think about? What was his purpose and overall structure? What was he good at? So all of these are things that you can listen for during the test speech. However, you don't need to remember all of these things. You simply got to find two commendations and one recommendations. So one of the things that you would have likely heard during our meetings is Toastmaster DTM Gong, we're speaking about the sandwich method. So the sandwich method is simply a strength, recommendation, and another strength. Simply just like that, a sandwich. So you want to open with what they did well. How can you recommend them? And also, again, what they did well. So make them feel good, empower them, make them feel good, send them on their way. So this is how you're going to give a very simplified version of an evaluation. Now, I will also send you guys some videos from previous evaluation contests at the district level so that you can see how different persons utilize the sandwich method, how to utilize the themes of what the speaker spoke about, so that you can see how creative you can really get with these things and other frameworks like using acronyms. So let's move on to speaking order strategy. So going back to my experience this past week, I had spoken, it was 7 evaluators and I was number 4. I was in the middle of the pack. Now, going back to Toastmaster Tooth's speech, everyone saw where he lost his place in the speech. And during that speech, he also slapped himself really hard. Like he had a lot of jokes, but he slapped himself and it made the whole room shake. Like he gave himself a real slap. And because I knew that I was going to be 4th, I knew that the first 3 speakers were either going to speak about the slap, they were going to speak about him forgetting where he was. So off the bat, I know I don't want to repeat what another evaluator said. So I have to find a way to evaluate the speaker without repeating something or putting myself at a disadvantage because the judges have heard it before. So what I did was I decided to focus on what he did well, and it was actually Thanksgiving night. So because it was Thanksgiving night, I used the GIVE framework. So I gave him, I said give, and every time a speaker comes to the stage, it's a gift to them. So I'm now going to give you a gift on how to elevate the speech to the next level. And my G was how he grabbed attention. My I was his impact of the content. My V was his vocal variety. And then my E was how we're going to elevate this to another level. So again, this is how you can get creative with it. And because it was Thanksgiving night, I thought it was a good opportunity to use the GIVE framework. But again, let's look at the speaking order strategy. If you're going to be first, you have an opportunity to mention the elephant in the room. You have the opportunity to get out there first so that no one else can take it from you. But if you're like 6th or 7th in the lineup, now you got to find something very specific and you got to expand on that. So one of the things that I learned from a past district winner was you have to find something that everyone else is scared to talk about. So he gave me an example of when he was at the district championships and it was a speaker who spoke about the LGBTQ community. And in the US, that's a very sensitive topic. So all of the other speakers decided not to speak about that elephant in the room. And what he did was, that's all he spoke about. He just spoke about that portion of the speech because he knew that no one else was going to speak about that. And because of that, that put him now at an advantage because there were so many other speakers and no one else spoke about what he spoke about. So it was like a breath of fresh air. So imagine now you have 7 speakers. The first 6 people speak about the same obvious things. It now becomes repetitive. And then the last speaker speaks about something that was the elephant in the room, and that's all he spoke about. He expanded on it, and he gave a good presentation. Now you just put yourself at the top of the line simply because you understood what the strategy was because of where you spoke. So this is something to keep in mind as well. So moving on to some tips. So one of the things that I've noticed in speakers and myself as well, you have time. Speak slower than your brain wants to, because this allows you to sound more informed, it allows you to sound more confident. And if you speak too fast, you just might mess up. Even if you know what you want to say, you might mess up. So it's always best to speak at a nice, calm pace and understand that you have time. Secondly, trust your first idea. Don't hesitate. That first idea that you have, stick with it and continue going with it. Thirdly, end strong. One of the things that has worked really well, once you give the good, the recommendation, and the good again, in that last part, summarize what you said. So open what you did, what they did well, what they can improve on, and then summarize it at the end so that now you're telling the judges, you're telling the audience, telling the speaker exactly what you just spoke about, and it also gives you a good structure. Your opening, your body, your conclusion. Structure again, the rule of 3. Fourthly, never, ever apologize. Do not apologize when you get on that stage. Please, do not say sorry. Let me start over. Just keep going. Just keep going. I don't care if you're practicing. I don't care if you're talking to yourself in the mirror. Do not apologize. Just keep going, because if it happens in real life, what are you going to do? You can't apologize. You just got to keep going. So practice how you play. If you make a mistake, just keep going and finish it through. And then finally, the judges reward confidence, not perfection. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be confident in what you're saying, and it just got to be simple enough to make sense, right? We got to be able to utilize what you've said and make use of it. So you don't have to be perfect. Just have a great structure. Understand commendation, recommendation, commendation. Structure will help you so much. Just knowing that you're going to start good, recommend good, and that's it. Okay, so my slide is out. So let's look at the evaluation judges rubric. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen, please. Okay, so let's look at the judging items. So the analytical quality is what you're seeing clear. Is it focused? The recommendations, are they positive? Are they specific? Can they actually help the speaker? Because I think this is the most important thing. How can you help the speaker? Finally, is your technique? Is it very simple? Is it sensitive? Is it motivational? Are you using some type of creative strategy? And then finally, your close. Is it concise? Is it encouraging? Can you summarize what you've just said in a clear, concise manner so that everyone can leave now knowing what you talked about and what your commendation was? The judging criteria again, analytical quality. So this refers to the effectiveness of the evaluation. Every evaluation should carefully analyze the strengths and weaknesses of the speaker's presentation. So you could have, I saw someone who had, he had an easel like painting, and I saw the evaluation the first time. Then he went to district and he did the same thing. However, his evaluation was more so focused on presenting a painting rather than actually evaluating the speaker. Now, that may work at a club level, at an area level, but once you get to a district level where persons are able to be creative, something like that doesn't work. So you, again, you always want to be very clear on your evaluation. Evaluation is meant to help the speaker. It's not about us. It's about how can we help the speaker in a very creative and concise way. The recommendations is an important part of the evaluation. An evaluator not only points out the strengths and weaknesses of a speech, but he also offers very specific recommendations for improvement. That's the main thing there, improvement. How can we improve this speech? The technique, it refers to the manner in which the evaluator presents his or her comments and recommendations. An evaluator should be sensitive to the feelings and needs of the speaker, yet inspire and encourage the speaker in his or her future speaking efforts. And then finally, summation is how the evaluator concludes the evaluation. The conclusion should briefly summarize the evaluation's comments and suggestions and be positive and encouraging. So I will send all of these judges' guides and ballots in the group chat along with the PowerPoints. But I'm going to give you an example of what I do to prepare for an evaluation contest. So again, you don't know who the test speaker is going to be. You don't know what they're going to start talking about, but there are ways to still prepare for an evaluation. So like I had shown, so let me go back to the screen, things to listen for. So I've written down multiple things to listen for any speaker. And I have I write everything, all my thoughts down. I have everything down, what I want to say, what I might want to say. I plan for every situation. So for example, I plan for someone who's going to give a motivational speech. I plan for someone who is going to give a story. I plan for someone who's going to give an informative speech. All of these things, I at least know a different framework that I want to give. So sometimes I even have something here. I can compare the speech to a sunrise. I have no clue what they might speak about, but if they start speaking about like a sun or something, I know I have something ready for that. So your speech was like a sunrise. It started calm, it grew bright, and it ended warm. I've now used the sun to compare your speech to it. I can use a speak framework where I use an acronym. The S is for the structure, the P is for the presence, E is for energy, A is for audience, and the K is for the key message. And I would say something like, continue to speak using the S, P, E, A, key. Just finding ways, creative ways to utilize these things. Like I had said on Thursday, it was Thanksgiving. So I used the GIVE framework. But you can use any different acronym. You can find any theme from the speaker's speech to give them an evaluation. I have voice, I have pace. Every speech and every story is told at a different pace. And then I use PACE, preparation, alignment, clarity, and energy to give an evaluation. So again, there's so many different things. And one of the most important things that I think I can give you on my preparation is, if the speech is going to be an inspirational speech, your recommendation likely is going to be to emotionally lift your presentation. That's going to be the easiest thing to give a recommendation on. If it's an informative speech, you may want to evaluate them on clarity. If it's an entertaining speech, you may want to evaluate them on their punchlines. And if it's a persuasive speech, you want to make sure that they have a really clear call to action. So these are just some frameworks that I use. I have different openings, I have different closes, because again, once the speaker starts to speak, you cannot take any notes. So you want to go into the game at least with an opening and a closing that you can put in anything. So I can't recall if I told you guys how the evaluation is going to, contest is going to go, but here's how it goes. the test speaker goes up, and as the speaker is speaking, you cannot take any notes. You cannot take any notes. This is a listening contest, so you have to listen for the things that stand out. Again, 2 strengths, 1 recommendation. So you listen for the things that stand out, and then all the competitors go outside the room, and you're given 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, to write your notes and then come back in and give a presentation. So again, the speaker goes up, they speak. As they're speaking, you cannot write any notes. Then you go inside the room, you're going to be given a piece of paper and a pen to write your thoughts down. Everyone's going to get the same blank piece of paper and notes to write down your notes. Then you're going to come back in within your order, 1 at a time, and give an evaluation between 2 to 3 minutes and 30 seconds. I think that is all I have for the evaluation part. But I'll just close off with one last thing of one last framework that I have. So the last thing I wrote down was, thank you, Toastmaster X. Every time a speaker steps up, they offer us a gift, a piece of their story, their perspective, and their growth. Tonight, you gave us exactly that, and I commend you for bringing your voice and vulnerability to the stage. That is the opening that I have for any speech. And then I have a close. To give your speech the thoughtful evaluation it deserves, I'll break it down using the X approach. So again, preparation is your best friend in the table topics and the evaluation contest. Do we have any questions? Questions? Or did I give such a great presentation that we all got all the information in?
I got a lot of information from that presentation just now, so no questions from me.
Okay, DJ Mgongora?
I just had a comment about the sequence of how you listen, then you go into you go outside of the room and take notes for 5 minutes. At 5 minutes, they take your notes away, but when it's your turn, they give you your notes back. I don't know if you mentioned that.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, so you can have your notes back when it's your time to go on the stage, and you may use your notes or not, but that's one part of the sequence. So those notes that you take, it may be to write down the things that you had already prepared for beforehand, like, okay, this is an inspirational speech, and this is what I have for evaluating an inspirational speech, and you can write it down just so you don't forget, and refer to it while it's on the lectern while you're giving your evaluation. No, so that's just one thing I wanted to mention that I didn't hear from you, but yeah. So, and I didn't remember that you were not supposed to take notes, but I think you're correct. You're correct about that. Yeah.
Okay, yes, thank you for that. You can use your notes. I think it's best to have your notes there. I've seen people go up without their notes and they may forget something. So it's always best to have your notes. There's no fault in having your notes to read. It's an evaluation. The point is to make sure they can get better and give them in a very creative way. Any more questions? No questions? DJ Mgongora?
Oh, one more comment I wanted to make is that at a contest, it is actually showtime. Okay, you have judges there, and I think you need to give them a little pizzazz, a little thing to impress them. Although you're trying to help the speaker get better with your evaluation, but you need to do it in a spectacular fashion. You need to kind of impress your audience with your evaluation. They give them a little show, you know. So that's sometimes that gives you the edge when an evaluator is very thorough and it can become boring, and the reaction of the audience is one of the things that the judges are looking for as well. So, try to say something that is going to make the audience connect and engage with you. Something, it could be humor, it could be something shocking that you say, but it's showtime. You need to give a show while you're evaluating at the same time. So that's something that I just wanted to put out there that they may not be thinking about. Everybody's going to be trying to impress. So you should not be any different, but impress while also giving value at the same time.
Yes, I agree. It's definitely showtime. I've seen people have costumes. Like I said, someone had an art easel and they were painting. Some people may sing songs. This is a time to really show out while also staying very informative. So what I'll do is I'll ask about 2 questions to see what stood out to most persons. So I'll ask Toastmaster Marlon Archer tonight, what stood out to you most in tonight's presentation? What are you going to take away most from tonight?
Well, there's so much information that was given. For an example, the table topics. When DTM Gongora said it's a mini speech, and when you initially were speaking, you spoke about how it should have like an opening, you have your meat and potatoes, your closing. So it's like, oh, okay, rather interesting. And then all the information you gave was very, very informative. So I was screenshotting so I can actually go back and read over everything that I saw tonight. So I'm excited for this opportunity. I'm really excited to be on this journey. I'm learning a lot. Every opportunity that I get to the lecture, and that's exactly what I'm going to do because I really want to grow and become a better speaker. So thank you
Yes,
for
that's
this.
good.
Thank you so much for this.
That's good. I'll also post this presentation in the group chat so you can have the full thing as well.
Thank
I'll
you.
also post this on YouTube so you can look back in the background and listen to throughout the day.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Toastmaster Sandia Miller, what stood out to you most this evening? Toastmaster Sandia Miller, you there?
Apologies, Mr. President. Yes, I am here. What stood out the most for me this evening was the various ways that the table topics session can be responded to. In our trainings for the last several weeks, my mentee and I, we had been using repeating the question approach in order to be a time filler to just gather thoughts. What I did take away from it that I didn't know was that you can take a pause prior to beginning to speak, and that allows you some time to think versus starting and verbalizing, and then the clock starts, and then you're still saying in your head, I don't know. So I learned that, and that stood out to me, to take a pause and that the clock does not begin until the first words are uttered.
Yes, that's very important. I think a lot of persons, even if it's nonverbal, I've seen persons start the clock without them even realizing because they give a nonverbal communication and the clock just starts going. Toastmaster Carey, what stood out to you most this evening?
Hi. Okay, yes, I must agree with Toastmaster Miller when it comes to starting with the question. Is as I was practicing, that's what I was doing. And then I found myself after saying the question, then I would pause. So now I know I don't always have to start with the question, but I too didn't realize you could pause for as long as you can. Well, not to in a reasonable time. You could pause, gather your thoughts, and then start. And I also like the different framework here that's up on the screen that I now have in my arsenal that I can pull out. Because I didn't know, there were different, I guess, frameworks that you could use to answer the different table topics questions. And honestly, looking at this, I can see where I can improve, and I am improving as I meet with my mentor. So this was really helpful for me. As TM Madeline did, I screenshot this so that I can go back to it and continue to practice and improve.
That's good. That's good. One of the things I forgot to mention too for the evaluation, there's a resource on Instagram called Prepared Speech Evaluation, where this person gives different ways to give an evaluation. This is where I actually initially learned to do different types of evaluation from. For example, there's a SPICE framework, the story, purpose, impact, energy. And this person has about over 100 different posts on just evaluation. So this is also a great resource for persons to use. So with that being said, we'll call this to a close. We've been going for about 90 minutes. Any more questions? Anything persons want to ask? Any statements? Okay, so thank you all for coming out. I'm glad that this was informative for everyone involved. I'm glad that we also got an opportunity to practice a bit with the table topics and learn something new. Throughout the week, I'll be speaking with everyone. Also, if I've spoken to everyone, I've spoken to most persons in here. For those who I haven't reached out to, if you're interested in going into any other competitions besides one that you're already in, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be reaching out to you as well. And we will stay in contact so that everyone can be in the best possible place for competition on Thursday. I look forward to seeing everyone compete. I look forward to going from the club competition to the area competition as well, and then finally to the district level. So thank you all and have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks. Good
Good
night,
night.
everyone.
Take care.
Have a great week.
Good night. Bye.